Now let's talk about the responsibility of family members and what you're going to put into your family constitution. So what do you expect from your family members? What must they do? For example, do they have to attend the annual family meeting? Do they have to work on a family committee? Do they have to vote on family matters? Do they have to adhere to a code of conduct? Do they have to participate in the family philanthropy? And do they have to settle disputes using the family dispute resolution process? And then who's going to lead your family? Is there a patriarch or a matriarch, or is there a family council? Oftentimes the family council is made up of the most senior family members, for example, grandma and grandpa and the siblings who are, say, in their 50s or 60s. And the family council is often called upon to make the most important decisions on behalf of the family. Not the businesses, but the family. So who is going to be on the family council? How long are their terms? What decisions can they make? How do they vote? Is it open or closed voting? And how open are the family council meetings to other family members to come and participate? Are there meeting notes kept? How secret or how transparent are these family council meetings? Many families create a family code of conduct. You would think that this would not be necessary, but in fact it's very helpful to have in writing what is expected of families when they're interacting with each other. Here we see a sample of a family code of conduct. Things like treating each other with respect and dignity, not using foul language at family meetings with each other, listening and not interrupting each other, not yelling and screaming. Things that sound obvious, but in fact, by putting them down in the family constitution, we make it very clear that we're serious about treating each other in a civil manner. Now, why do we want to treat each other in a civil manner? It sounds obvious, but it isn't always obvious to people. And I would say that there is no good way to make a decision by just having the person who screams the loudest be the winner. That's not a rational way to make decisions that is going to make your family prosper for multiple generations. In fact, that's the easiest way to create family lawsuits and have the family explode. So learning to be civil, to talk to each other properly, and to reason through problems is critical if you want your family to last for multiple generations. Many families have a family meeting annually, particularly if you have a multiple generation family. Perhaps you have people living in different parts of the country or all over the world. It's really nice to bring everybody together at least once a year for a meeting where we deliberately talk about ourselves as a family, as opposed to just a social meeting. So how big should the family be to have a family meeting? Typically, these start happening when there's 2 or 3 generations in the family. And how often should you meet? I would say at least once a year. What should be covered at a family meeting? Any changes to the family constitution, any major issues that the family is facing as a group, and how should the meeting be memorialized? Some people like to video the meeting. Some people like to have a reporter on hand who writes up meeting notes that are put into the family website. Depending on how sensitive the materials are, that's up to you. But always keep in mind that anything you video or write down, it's on the positive side that's available for the future generations to see how particular decisions were being made, and on the negative side there's always a risk of things being leaked to the public. So make sure that anything that is put down in writing or videotaped is something that indeed, if it were made public, will not overly embarrass the family. Let's also talk about dispute resolution. Families are human, people fight. It's just a part of life. So what we want to make sure is that family fights do not escalate into family lawsuits, which escalate into an implosion of your family. How do we do that? Ideally, we want to have a family dispute resolution process, a way for family members to at least try to work out their differences before they initiate a lawsuit. Oftentimes, this means the family council will get involved in the dispute, or they will bring in a neutral mediator, etc. So you want to have a dispute resolution process in place, and then you want to say what happens if the dispute resolution process doesn't work. What are the next steps? For example, does the family members, are they required to go to mediation before any kind of a lawsuit? It's important to put all this down in writing. What are the consequences of violating the family constitution? What happens if a family member fails to live up to the code of conduct? What happens if the dispute resolution process is not followed or just simply fails? What happens next? So, for example, You could have a situation where dividends will be withheld. You could fine family members. You could bar them from family meetings. There are a number of things people do in terms of putting some teeth behind the family constitution. Again, that's a very individual decision. Some families like to be really tough and say, if you violate certain things, your dividends will be withheld, period, end of story. That really gets people's attention because it's their money that they will lose if they don't follow the family constitution. Others say, well, we don't want you at the meetings, or it's something much more mild. You'll have to decide for yourself what makes sense for your family.